Welcome to Hear In Hanover, your all-access pass to everything happening in Hanover County. I'm your host, Kristen Smith Dunlop. You're probably aware, but our nation celebrates a major milestone birthday this year on July 4th when it turns 250 years old. Celebrations are already underway across the country, across the Commonwealth, and here in Hanover. So here to talk more about it are the chair and co-chair of Hanover County's 250th Anniversary Commission, Amber Hawkins and Geddy. Ladies, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
We're talking about 2026, but as you mentioned before we got started, planning has been underway for 4 years. For those who aren't familiar, tell us more about what is Hanover's 250th Anniversary Commission and what is the mission?
Yep. So the commission was formally established about 4 years ago to commemorate the nation's semi-quincentennial, the 200th anniversary of the nation's founding, and a lot of the big events that led up to the 250th happened right here in Hanover County. We all know our famous Patrick Henry from Hanover County, who led the charge beginning in 1763 with the Parsons Cause trial. So we have worked to bring together several partner organizations, county leadership, community members, to make sure that we tell all the stories that led up to the nation's 250th birthday.
All right. Well, so Hanover, as you mentioned, played an important role in the nation's founding. What are some of the county's most significant contributions to the American story?
I think probably the most important contribution, other than Patrick Henry himself, is the struggle for religious freedom. It really began here in Hanover with the dissenters, who the Reverend Samuel Davies, whose portrait is in our courthouse. It's hung there for years, who was the first non-Church of England preacher licensed in Virginia. Virginia had a state church that you were required to attend, and it acted as an arm of government. And in Hanover, which was sort of the backwoods, people began to not like that and meet in meeting houses and so forth, which eventually evolved into the dissenting movement, and Amber can talk more to this, and Pole Green and the Presbyterian dissenters.
Yes, so historic Pole Green Church right here in Hanover is ground zero for religious freedom. So in the 1740s and 50s, the Reverend Samuel Davies was preaching. Our young Patrick Henry was listening and is said to have obtained his wonderful oration skills under the guidance of Samuel Davies. So we're very proud that we are ground zero for religious freedom, and it's a story that may not be told as often as some of our other freedom stories. So we want to make sure that the lesser known stories are told, and we are going to commemorate religious freedom this August with the Religious Freedom Tour. So I'll let Ann tell you a little about what we have planned. Again, that's August 15th.
Right. August 15th, we're calling it Voices of Freedom, and it's going to be sort of a history crawl throughout the county. Different sites involved with this will each be open for 2 hours. There'll be a map you can follow, and we'll start with Slash Church, which people probably know as Slash Christian Church, but it was actually the Upper Church of St. Paul's Parish, the official church. And oddly enough, Patrick Henry's uncle, the Reverend Patrick Henry, was the rector there. But that was the church you had to pay taxes to and you had to attend, and who kept property records and so forth. We start there, and then we go to Pole Green, where the Reverend Samuel Davies was. And then from there, we're going to go over to Brown Grove. That church, it wasn't a revolutionary church, but it plays into the story because once the church was disestablished at the time of the Revolution, congregations could form, but black congregations couldn't meet together because they weren't, numbers of people weren't allowed to meet together, so the congregation would meet in secret. And Brown Grove was one of the churches that did that. So they're celebrating a homecoming in their history, and they've invited other churches in the area to join them. Where else are we going? We're then going to...
Then we're going to go to Randolph-Macon and commemorate the Methodist denomination there that started out of the American Revolution. Then we'll visit Scotchtown and learn more about the Quaker movement. that was also happening during the American
Yeah, it was
Revolution.
very close to Scotchtown.
And then we will culminate out at the Fort Church Episcopal that is celebrating their 300th anniversary this year. And we have cameos at all locations. So we'll have visits from Thomas Jefferson, from George Mason. Who else? We have Patrick Henry, a young Patrick Henry.
The Reverend Samuel Davies.
We have Reverend Samuel Davies, and we have John Jasper.
Right.
So it's going to be a great event. We've got all kinds of activities planned along the way, food, music, live music. So mark your calendars. We hope that people will visit all 6 locations.
But you don't have to.
But you don't have to. If you want to
It's all
come to
free.
one, it's all free. Come out and see us
You said that's August 15th?
August
Right.
15th.
And it will be followed in the fall with a program Pole Green is sponsoring. Sites of Conscience, is that what you
Voices of
Voices
Conscience.
of Conscience. Really about the Baptists who were another dissenting congregation, who actually Patrick Henry had defended it in court prior to the Revolution. But that will be about, the petitions they submitted, pressing for religious freedom, et cetera, et cetera. So that promises to be even better.
So alongside these big signature programs, we have our partner organizations, the Hanover Tavern across the street, Patrick Henry Scotchtown. What other groups do we have involved that are putting on programs?
Scotchtown is going to, in the fall, is going to have a big program. We don't know the exact date yet, because Patrick Henry was the first elected governor of Virginia. And so he was living at Scotchtown when he was elected. So there'll be something out there about that.
We have hosted an art expo, so we do try to broaden the audience and reach people about this information. But I will say that the Ashland Museum hosts programs, the Hanover Arts and Activity Center is hosting programs. But within, in particular within this August 15th tour, when you visit each of these locations, you're going to get a deeper dive into the lesser known stories
Yes.
that were happening alongside the American Revolution.
Right. Coming up on June 28th, there's a program over at the Tavern that's sponsored by the Hanover County Historical Society. Again, it's Patrick Henry. His biographer is going to be there having a conversation about the Virginia Bill of Rights and Henry's election as governor and the statute for religious freedom.
If you visit the 250th's website, you can get a list of our events, but we have reenactments, encampments if you want to get into the daily life of Hanover County and what it looked like in 1776. That's a good way to kind of get deeper into the everyday story of the times.
And it's going to be interesting as this progresses. Of course, the official 250 ends this year after the 4th of July. But as we were saying before we started, the Revolution went on to 1781 and the surrender at Yorktown. And there's still history happening in Hanover then. Armies came through. There were a number of patriots from the Tidewater area who refugeed to Hanover. During the Revolution, a man named Wilson Miles Carey bought Scotchtown from Patrick Henry once he became governor. And he was there. Thomas Nelson, one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, lived in the western part of the county. And I think there are going to be programs about all of these people as well.
And for the history enthusiasts, we also have lots of lantern tours. The Tavern is doing an American Revolution themed program this fall. So there's lots of activities, lots of different genres of activities, and our Museum of History and Culture right here has great exhibits and also supports the county's 250th signature events, History in Hops and Winter on the Green.
Okay, so what is the best way for residents to get involved, whether they're really deep into history or they just want to connect with the community? What's their best way to do that?
I would definitely say social media.
Yeah.
Facebook and Instagram are the best bets, so make sure you follow Hanover 250th. You can also, we link to the Virginia 250th social media if you want to look for things that are happening right outside the bounds of Hanover and some that tie directly. So I would say that's probably the best way to stay connected.
Yeah, one thing we haven't mentioned, we should have, is the Parsons Cause programs going on all summer. They're free at the courthouse on Saturday mornings. And it's called the Parsons Cause program because the main thing they present is the story of the trial where Patrick Henry attacked the king and the church in 1763. But they also, I think they show that twice. And then they have other historic characters. You can go online and find out a whole list of different ones each Saturday morning. And that play, actually, this past year, we got into the schools and got the drama clubs involved, and they presented the play both at the courthouse, I think, and at the Arts and Science thing. I think, are they going to be at the Tomato Festival, or that they were at History and Hops?
They were at History and Hops, and out of that also came an oratory contest.
Yeah, the Patrick Henry Oratory Contest.
And we did see some of those young people at our board meeting.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
They were incredible.
Yeah. And then Mater, the love sign, the Hanover love sign, is a 250 project. And they say more than 800 students and teachers have had a hand in it, because it's a mosaic. They are making these little pieces of the mosaic.
Well, between the love sign and the oratory contest and getting them involved in the Parsons Cause, it's just a great way to introduce young people to the history of their community.
Exactly.
How does Hanover's story fit into the broader Virginia 250 and America 250 commemorations?
I think it's an important story. It was funny. It was most important right before the Revolution, which was we presented a day last year about the Hanover Resolves, when they resolved that their delegates should vote for independence at the convention. And then also they opposed the African slave trade. It was fascinating. That's important. The Hanover militia was amongst those that marched down to Williamsburg when Governor Dunmore stole the powder from the powder magazine down there. Hanover played, and through Patrick Henry, of course, played a major role right before the Revolution. And it was interesting because, we had two port towns on the Pamunkey, Newcastle and Hanovertown. And when they moved the capital from Williamsburg after the Revolution started, because they felt it was too vulnerable, and so the Assembly had several choices with what to make the capital. And one was Newcastle in Hanover County, and the other was Richmond. And Richmond won. And Newcastle's now a field out in the eastern part of the county, and look at Richmond.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then later in the Revolution, as the troops marched to Yorktown eventually in 1780, 1781, they came through Hanover, and of course as armies marched, they pillaged, and there were little skirmishes and things. And then there were raids, Tarleton's raid. That will be interesting to see how it's
Yes, how
portrayed.
that
He was kind of
portrayed.
violent, and I think he came up to the courthouse and occupied it for a while. So it didn't end there. But Hanover's major role was leading up to it and producing Patrick Henry.
So let me ask you this. If you could put one Hanover story, one person, one moment on a national stage and make sure everyone knew about it, hard to narrow down, I'm sure, but what would that be?
I think for me it would be the story of Samuel Davies, the Hanover Dissenters, Historic Paul Green Church, and our First Amendment rights. They were born right here in Hanover County. It's a lesser-known story, but we are going to bring it to life this year. So for me, that's probably one of the most important stories outside of our
And Patrick Henry plays into that. His mother was a dissenter, and although he himself was not a dissenter, as I say before, when he was just practicing law, he defended Quakers, he defended Baptists in church who had been fined or accused of, not supporting the official church. There's an exhibit at Scotstown right now that has an interesting letter he wrote to a Quaker friend with his opinions on slavery and so forth. It's just real interesting. He weaves into all of that, and he becomes the orator of the Revolution through his influence by Samuel Davies.
So 4 years ago when y'all started, is there a takeaway, something you learned that you didn't expect, or something that you didn't anticipate that you're like,
Well,
I think that out of this, what probably one of the most significant opportunities is for our historic community to work together.
yes.
We have brought these organizations together. They are co-hosting events. We're reaching broader audiences. I think that, for me, has been the most positive takeaway of this commission's
They
work.
each sort of have a piece of the story, and now working together, you see how it comes together to have a real impact.
You mentioned people should follow social media. You want to give the handles for the social media and the website so that anyone who wants additional information can get it.
So if you go to the county's website, search bar Hanover 250th, it'll take you right to our landing page. As far as social media, it's at Hanover 250th.
Okay. Anything else you want to share?
It's fun, it's interesting, and people need to pay attention to it. And I sort of despair now that people don't as much as they should, and it is so important. And here we are with it right in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, I've learned a lot, and
Yeah.
I've been in Hanover
Yeah.
for a while. So.
Yeah, one of the first things we did when the commission came about was to have a series of performances of the Parsons Cause at the courthouse for the county employees.
Mm-hmm.
And most had never been in there. So
One of the oldest working courthouses in the
Courthouses.
nation.
Exactly.
I think that I would just encourage everyone to come out, support these historical organizations. A lot of our programming is free. Bring the kids. We try to have activities for all ages. So I would just encourage everyone to come out and support.
The tavern runs a wonderful series of field trips for school children in Hanover, and Scotchtown does as well. I think they
Yes.
had 600 students there last year, Hanover, sixth graders. You know, just go and absorb it all.
Well, we need these kids to be involved because they're going to be the ones planning for the 300th, right?
Exactly,
Yes.
precisely.
It's a little down the road, but
Yeah.
you got to keep that in
Yeah.
mind. Thank you both very much for your efforts, and we look forward to celebrating with you this summer.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
All right. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you next month here in Hanover.